Who were the Siddhars? What powers did they possess? Did an ancient Siddhar find the elixir of immortality in this sacred spot? Near the city of Salem, there is a town called Ilampillai. Situated at the foot of the mysterious Kanjamalai hill stands the ancient Siddheshwara temple. The town's name, Ilampillai, translates to young boy. And the reason for this name is a legend that dates back to thousands of years. Kanjamalai is a hill said to have been filled with medicinal herbs. Kanjam translates to metal. Even today, iron ore is found in abundance in this hill. This area was and still is said to be frequented by many Siddhars. Who is a Siddhar? The root of the word Siddhi means perfection, skill, and accomplishment. It is always used to denote the mastery over the material. So Siddhars are those that attain mastery over the material world. Due to their practice and knowledge, they finally gain the ashta siddhis, the 8 accomplishments. And these ashta siddhis give the Siddhas complete power over the universe. The ashta siddhis, the 8 siddhis, are mentioned in many ancient texts. They are anima, the ability to shrink one's body to the size of an atom. Mahima siddhi, the ability to increase the size of one's body, assuming the form of giants. Garima, the ability to increase the weight of one's body, becoming immovable. Lagima, the ability to decrease the weight of one's body so much that one is able to fly. Prapti, the ability to manifest and attain any object. Prakamya siddhi, the ability to transform oneself into any form they wish. And this includes the ability to move to other realms of existence and transmigrate onto other bodies. Ishitva is the next siddhi, the ability to lead all. They get the qualities of Isha. And the final siddhi is Vashitva. This is the ability to dissolve and spread oneself across the universe. In this state, they also experience the Chit Shakti. So the Siddhars, by means of their focus, knowledge, penance, are said to have cultivated several powers. Now these powers might outwardly be a boon for all materialists, but this does not mean that the Siddhars were materialists. Far from it. They are said to be very spiritual beings. Even when they frequent the earth, they take on the form of wandering ascetics whose only aim is to be in union with Shiva. For the Siddhars, the attainment of the ashta siddhis would take them to an understanding of Ma Shakti, the Divine Mother, and help them attain her grace, because all that exists is the Mahamaya of Shakti. So in one way, you can say that they are able to transcend the limitations of the material because they know that the material universe is illusory. Which is why Vashitva is usually considered to be the 8th siddhi, the final siddhi, even by great sages like Tirumular. Once they attained the grace of the Divine Mother, finally the aim of the Siddhars was to move towards Samadhi and realize Shiva. This is what the great sage Tirumular has mentioned in his Tirumandiram. So in the ancient past, the Siddhars frequented many places, and the area near Kanjamalai is said to be one place where the Siddhars went about perfecting their practices. Here, the Siddheshwara temple stands as a testament to the legacy of the Siddhars. This temple can be dated back to considerable antiquity. The people and the priest whose families have served this temple here for generations believe that the sanctum sanctorum has existed for thousands of years. Some even give 8,000 years as a timeline, whether you believe it or not. The structure of the temple itself is ancient. Some parts of the temple were built by the Cholas, but the other parts are more ancient. You can see the difference in the color of the stones that were used for construction. The Vimana that houses the sanctum sanctorum is built with white limestone and is much older than the Chola era constructions. You can also see this rock-cut Shiva and these molded lingas, which are also considerably older. This temple is said to be consecrated by the kings of the Adiyaman dynasty, which predated the Cholas and the Pallavas. The Adiyamans were a royal dynasty that ruled from the nearby city of Dharmapuri, and they were in power in this region at around 300 BCE, more than 2300 years ago. Their title were Satyaputra Atiyans, a family that upheld the truth. If this is the case, the Sanctum Sanctorum would be at the minimum more than 2000 years old. But the legends that surround this temple and the town of Ilampillai are older. The narrative starts with the great Siddhar Tirumular. He arrives here with his disciple, now known as Kanjamalai Nadar. Tirumular was a great Siddhar who obtained his knowledge from Nandishvara and encapsulated all his teachings in the sacred Tirumandiram. The great sage and his disciple arrive here searching for the famed Chiranjeevi herb, which is considered to be an elixir of immortality. If one would consume the herb, one could turn back the clock by years and become a much younger person. So Tirumular asks his disciple to prepare food while he goes off to search for these herbs in the hills. Kanjamalai Nadar, as a dutiful disciple, sets about cooking rice in a pot. He finds a stick nearby and uses it to stir the pot of rice. To his dismay, the rice turns black. Thinking it would be improper to feed his guru the rice that had turned black, he consumes the rice himself. In an instant, the elderly Kanjamalai Nadar turns into a young boy. His grey hair turns black and his body is restored back to his youthful days. Sage Tirumular returns and he asks this young boy where his disciple was. He himself is stunned on knowing that it was a sage who indeed had been turned into a young boy. He asks his disciple to regurgitate his meal, and Sage Tirumular himself consumes it to test its potency, and he too regains his youth. Sage Tirumular instructs his disciple to stay here and carry on his activities from this sacred space. So the sage, in the form of a young boy, now called Kanjamalai Nadar, stayed in this area. One day he saw a vision of the great god Muruga. The great Skanda advises the sage to pursue the aim of all Siddhars, moving towards a state of union with god Shiva. Even today there is a shrine to god Muruga who is there in the form of Jnana Sadguru Balamurugan. The young sage, on hearing the words of the great Kartikeya, enters into a great penance, meditating on Mahadeva Shiva in this sacred spot. Maheshwara appears and the young sage asks for a boon. His boon was that he be detached from all bonds of the material and forever be immersed in Shiva. Shiva bestows his grace upon the Siddhar, and till today the sage is said to be in this sacred spot, immersed in this union with Mahadeva, bestowing his grace upon those who seek his help. This is the story of Ilam Pillai. So who is this Kanjamalai Nadar? Many, but not all, associate Kanjamalai Nadar with the great Siddhar Kalangi Nadar, who was also a disciple of Tirumular. Very little is known about Kalangi Nadar. Legends say that he was born in northern India in the holy city of Varanasi, Kasi, and he belonged to the Navanatha, the 9 saints Sampradaya. Kalangi Nadar learnt all the Siddha arts from his guru Tirumular. He then became the guru of the great Siddha Bogar. Bogar actually mentions Kalangi Siddhar as his guru and equates him in fact to his father. Kalangi Nadar taught Bogar Nadar all the Siddhic sciences. One of the systems he taught Bogar was that of Kaya Kalpa, the secret of longevity, how to keep the body healthy for a long time. Like Bogar, Kalangi Nadar is also said to have visited China. In fact, some traditions hold that it was Kalangi Nadar who asked Bogar to head to China when his job over there was finished and Kalangi Nadar wanted to return back to the subcontinent. Kalangi Nadar also never aged. Some people believed that it might not be Kalanginadar who is Kanjamalai Siddhar. They might have been different sages, but their end goal was the same, to attain Shiva. And the immortality that they were talking about is not mere physical immortality. They were talking about realizing the immortality of the Jiva. Their aim was to merge the Jiva, the self, which had already been in countless cycles of birth and death, into Shiva, and thereby attain the great goal of liberation. This was the immortality that they aimed for. To achieve this, they found ways including meditation, yoga, and breath control, which could take one to this state. The sages focused on Kaya Siddhi, perfecting the human body, because they knew only when they could have health, strength, and longevity in their body could they focus on perfecting their practices that would lead them to realization. But this knowledge too they shared with everyone in the world. The sages also used bhakti, devotion, as a means to dissolve their perception of the self. The great Siddhar Bogar, in devotion, created a murti of God Muruga, and he made this with 9 deadly poisons, the Nava Pashana. He is said to have chosen the ratios of these 9 deadly poisons and processed it in such a way that the combination of these poisons could now be used to cure any disease. This he consecrated in the sacred mountain of Padani. In this way, the Siddhars merged science and devotion together. But their final goal was to attain the state of Shiva. For the Siddhars, the final goal was Jiva Samadhi. This is a state where they attain union with Shiva by willfully restraining the life force in the physical body. Though they have attained union and dissolved the I, their conscious energy is said to be still around to serve as a guiding light for seekers. In this way, the Siddhars continue their work in teaching those who seek them and serve as a guide to humanity. This, they knew, was the real meaning of immortality. And this was their way to free the Jiva from its countless cycles of birth and death. As the great sage Tirumular himself wrote, Adangu பேர் அண்டத்து அணு அண்டம் சென்றங்கு இடன்கொண்ட தில்லை இதுவன்றி வேறுண்டோ கடந்தொறும் நின்ற உயிர்க்கரை காணில் திடம்பெற நின்றான் திருவடிதானே. Just as the tiny atom which constitutes the vast universe makes and merges into the vast universe, so the Atma, taking on and crossing lives in all these various bodies, finally finds its ancient home in his holy feet. And that merging of the Jiva into Shiva is what the great Siddhars accomplished. And in doing so, they also created compendiums of knowledge that are left behind. For the betterment of humanity, they recorded and shared their knowledge with everyone. In fact, the entire discipline of Siddha medicine is said to have been evolved from the writings of the Siddhars. They were masters of herbal medicine. They knew which herbs could cure what ailments. They were also the founders of Varmakalai, an art by which vital points in the body could be pressed and manipulated to heal various diseases. Centuries later, the Siddheshwara temple stands as a testament to the legacy of the Siddhars. Even today, the hills are said to be full of medicinal plants. The water that comes from the mountain streams is said to contain medicinal properties. Many come here to take a bath in these sacred waters in the hope that it cures their maladies of mind and body. It is believed that the energy of Kanjamalai Siddhar abounds in this area and he still bestows his grace on those who seek him. As always, the known is a drop and the unknown an ocean. Peace.